My HOA sent me a $5,200 fine for my front yard lights, claiming I was violating community standards. But what they didn't realize was that those lights were connected to something they legally had no control over. I've lived in the same neighborhood for 6 years. It's one of those planned communities with identical roofs, trimmed hedges, and a rules booklet thicker than a phone book. Most people keep their heads down, pay their dues, and avoid conflict. I did too. At least at first. My house was on the corner lot, slightly larger than the others, with a wide front yard that I actually enjoyed decorating. Not extravagantly, just tasteful lighting, seasonal plants, and a small pathway design I built myself over time. People used to compliment it. Kids liked walking past it. Even delivery drivers would slow down just to look. It was harmless, or so I thought. Then came the HOA president. Her name was Marla. Everyone called her Mrs. Rules. She lived 3 houses down in a perfectly maintained beige home that looked like it had never seen joy in its life. And she hated anything that stood out. It started small. A notice in my mailbox. Unauthorized exterior lighting detected. Remove within 7 days or face penalty. I thought it was a mistake. My lights were low voltage, energy efficient, and fully within code. So I ignored it. That was mistake number 1. A week later, another letter arrived. $250 fine. No explanation, no breakdown. Just a penalty for aesthetic disruption. That's when I went to the HOA office. Marla was sitting there behind a glass desk like she was running a corporation, not a neighborhood association. She didn't even look up when I walked in. "I got a fine," I said calmly. She finally glanced at me. "Then pay it," she replied. I explained the lighting was within regulations. She smiled slightly. "It's not about regulations. It's about harmony." That word, harmony, was her favorite weapon. But I wasn't interested in playing along, so I asked for the specific rule I violated. She slid a binder across the table. Section 14B. Any exterior modification that disrupts visual uniformity may be subject to penalty. That was it. Completely subjective, completely vague, completely intentional. I left knowing this wasn't about lights. It was about control. 2 weeks later, things escalated. My fine jumped to $1,200, then $2,300, then $2,300. Then I received a notice of enforcement action, which included potential towing of my vehicles and suspension of property privileges. That last part made no sense. Privileges to my own property? I laughed at first, until my driveway was suddenly marked with a bright orange warning sticker. My neighbor Dave leaned over the fence. "Yeah? She's been doing that to anyone who doesn't fall in line," he said quietly. I asked how long this had been going on. He just shrugged. Since she became HOA president, nobody challenges her. But I wasn't nobody. The next morning, I woke up to find my front yard lights partially cut. Not damaged, just selectively disabled. Like someone had physically interfered with the wiring. That's when I installed a small camera system. But that wasn't the worst part. That evening, I received a certified letter. HOA legal notice. They were preparing to place a lien on my property over decorative lighting. I went back to Marla's office. This time I wasn't polite. "You can't place a lien over something this trivial," I said. She leaned back in her chair. "You'd be surprised what we can do when homeowners refuse to cooperate." Then she added something that stuck with me. "You're new money. You don't understand how things work here." That line told me everything. This wasn't about rules, it was about hierarchy. And she thought I was at the bottom of it. But she had no idea who she was actually talking to. That night I made a few calls. Not emotional ones, professional ones. I used to work in property development, large-scale residential projects, the kind that build entire neighborhoods like the one I lived in. And something about her binder didn't sit right with me. So I pulled the original development filings. That's when I found it. The HOA didn't own the land rights they thought they did. In fact, Certain infrastructure elements, including the underground electrical routing that partially ran through my corner lot, were still tied to the original development easement, which meant they didn't have full authority over modifications that affected that system, including exterior lighting connections. But there was something even more important. The original developer listed on the filings, my family company. We had sold the project years ago under strict conditions Marla's HOA board had apparently forgotten, or never bothered to read. But I didn't act yet. Not until I saw what they would do next. The next morning, a tow truck arrived, not for my car, for my contractor van parked illegally in my driveway. I walked outside as the driver was hooking it up. "This is private property," I said. He shrugged. "HOA order. I just follow instructions." Behind him stood Marla, watching, smiling, like she had already won. That was the moment something shifted. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I just asked one question. "Are you absolutely sure you want to proceed with this?" She nodded. "Your compliance history speaks for itself." Then the truck pulled my van halfway up and stopped. Because the tow company had received a call directly from their legal department. The driver stepped out, confused. We're being told to pause all action." Marla's smile faded slightly. "What do you mean, pause?" The driver handed her a phone. She listened. Her expression changed immediately, from confident to uncertain, then to something closer to panic. She hung up without a word and walked away. No explanation, no confrontation, just gone. But that wasn't the worst part, because I now knew exactly what had just been discovered on their end. That evening, I received an emergency HOA meeting notice. Mandatory attendance. I went. The entire board was there. Marla avoided eye contact. A man in a suit I had never seen before stood at the front. He cleared his throat. Certain enforcement actions taken this week were not legally compliant. Murmurs spread through the room. He continued. Specifically, the attempt to place a lien and impound property under invalid authority. Marla finally spoke. "This is a misunderstanding. The homeowner violated..." He interrupted her. "No, the HOA violated." Silence. He turned toward me. "Mr. I has legal standing tied to the original development easement. Certain HOA enforcement powers were never properly transferred." You could hear chairs shifting, people whispering. Marla looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. The man continued. "Furthermore, all fines issued to this property are null and must be refunded." That number? Over $5,000. Then came the final part. "The current HOA enforcement leadership is suspended pending review." Meaning Marla, removed, publicly, immediately. She stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous, this is personal." But no one backed her, not a single board member, because they all knew what she had done. And now they knew she had done it without authority. The meeting ended in silence. Outside, I walked past Marla as she stood near her car. No HOA authority, no clipboard, no control. Just a neighbor who had misjudged her limits. She didn't speak. Neither did I. Because there was nothing left to say. Some people think power comes from titles. But real power comes from understanding what those titles are built on. And I already knew. As I drove home, my yard lights turned on automatically. Perfectly legal. Perfectly mine. And this time, no one was cutting them again. Some people mistake silence for weakness.